Hey everybody, Troy from the Do-It-Yourself World and the Off-Grid Project. Sitting here in my off-grid electronics shop. The reason I'm in my off-grid electronics shop instead of in the off-grid tiny house today is because it's a little bit noisy in there. Michelle is a child, and she talks and talks and talks and talks and talks now. And Melanie is fluttering around like a bird happily and has music and stuff going on, since we have to conform to all the regulations and not play somebody else's music. Therefore, I'm out here. And today we're going to talk about what it means to be off the grid. Now, I've done this before and throughout the years in various videos and formats, but this is particularly for the series on how to get off the grid for $5,000 or less, depending on your situation. This, for example, you could very well sleep in a small shed like this and have everything you need with 4 batteries and 2 solar panels, and you're off the grid. I mean, seriously, this shed is off the grid. It's totally off the grid. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There's no lines coming to this place. There's no power lines to the house. There's no power lines to any utility poles. There's nothing connecting this to the outside world except for those 2 solar panels. So this is a fully off-grid functional place. I've got light if I want to turn on the light. I've got I can make coffee in here, which I've showed. I've got alternate energy devices running in the background. I hope is not too loud while I do this video. I want to talk to you today. This is the first official video in the series about how to get off the grid on a budget. And first I have to explain what it means to be off the grid. I see a lot of people talk about spy movie stuff, like going undercover and hiding from society, or people talking about primitive living and thinking that's off-grid. No. Off-grid living has nothing to do with primitive living, and you can live in relative comfort while being off the grid. So, the term off the grid, literally the term off the grid, is very simple. It means not being connected to the electrical power grid. The coal and wind turbine and the uranium, whatever you call it, nuclear powered plants that provide power through the lines and have a wire going to your house. The public power grid. If you are not using the power grid, then you are off the grid. And that's why I started out sitting here in the electronics lab as an example, because there's no wires coming to this. It is fully off the grid. Now, that having been said, I could run a propane stove in here and cook myself a little pot of coffee or a meal. I'm still off the grid. There's still no wires connected to this building from the outside world. I'm still off the grid. And I see a lot of people complain about using propane and saying, you're not off the grid, you use propane. Or, you're not off the grid, you drive a car. Or, you're not off the grid, you go to the grocery store. Well, that's confusion, I think, created by the movies, where we're just talking about the power grid. And anything else beyond that falls more under the category of homesteading or self-sufficiency. And some people go further and go primitive, but most of the time when you talk about off the grid, you're talking about people who have electricity, but they're just not using the commercial power grid. And again, big distinction from primitive living. I'm not even going to go there because it has nothing to do with off-grid living. Primitive living is absolutely different. The spy movie comparison is just that. It's spy movies. And so when they talk about going off the grid, they're talking about hiding from the public and not being seen or found electronically or digitally. By the way, many off-grid homes have internet, and they're still considered off the grid because they're not using the electrical power grid. my internet is plugged into the solar power bank, unless there's no power at the time, and usually then I unplug it to save power. But I generally have my modem, my internet modem, plugged into solar power off grid. So as far as my house goes, it's still off the grid. Now there's a line coming in to provide solar power. That is not electricity, though. That doesn't mean you're connected to the power grid. It's just internet. The internet is not the power grid. It's a separate thing. I was often criticized for using a cell phone. Well, that's wireless. And you can be in the middle of the forest and talk on a cell phone. Does that mean you're on the grid? According to that theory, then yeah, I guess that's what they would say. But I can't stress enough, off the grid simply means not connected to the power grid. That's it. Period. That's it. Bottom line. And I'm going to write an article on this to go along with this video to clarify it even more, because I know I repeat a lot, but I've heard these comments so many times through the years, I just can't stress it enough. Now, the propane, that's a big, big deal. People use, many off-gridders use propane for heating or for cooking. That is provided by people who do work in commercial facilities, yeah. But it doesn't mean that you're on the grid. You're still disconnected from the power grid. A lot of people use wood stoves for heating, and that's definitely off the grid. I mean, it's all natural. But if you use propane, does that mean you're on the grid? No, you're still not using the electrical power grid. So these distinctions have to be made when moving forward on the video series about how to get off the grid on a budget. It's just about the electricity, how to get your electrical needs provided by your own solar panels. And we're going to cover a lot on how to cut costs, how to reduce your energy needs. We're going to cover cooking, we're going to cover home heating, we'll cover food storage and food preservation, we'll cover lighting, different ways of lighting your home, we'll cover different types of heating your ways to heat your water, even ways to shower. These are all going to be specific, separate topics we'll discuss in the series, along with, of course, choosing a solar panel. Do you want to go 12, 24, 48 volts when you do this? Which has a big impact on which size solar panels you go, 12 or 24, which, by the way, are not 12 or 24 volts, but that's a separate story for another video. And then all the supporting equipment are all going to be in individual videos as we move on. And I'm also going to have links to hardware to back up everything. So the next video coming up is going to be about reducing your energy needs, which anybody and everybody, even now, on the grid or off the grid, can start doing now. Reduce your power bill by cutting costs and reducing how much energy you use in your home at this time to prepare yourself and pave the way for getting your home off the grid. Again, even if you're on the grid and don't care, it'll help you save money. So stay tuned and follow along as we show you how to get off the grid for $5,000 or less, or save money and stay on the grid if that's your option. But we'll show you one way or another. Thanks for watching, guys. Troy from the Do-It-Yourself World and the Off-Grid Project in my fully off-grid electronics lab. And that's what off the grid is about, guys. Talk to you later and watch for the next videos.